This is hot, Ray. Bankman, get a sample of this.
We have the tools, we have talent.
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Coming to you live from the back of your favorite vintage Cadillac ambulance, it's the only show you're listening to right this very second about Ghostbusters props, costumes, cosplay, and all-around funny business. Please welcome your hosts, the one and only Dan Challenge and Mark Feltwell. This is Spores, Molds, and Fungus.
Hello and welcome. Well, it's episode number 2 of the Spores, Mold and Fungus podcast, which means we now have twice the know-how and twice the particle power to deal with all of this podcasting business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Dan. I'm here with Mark, my co-host and fellow Ghostbusting cosplayer, Ghostbuster, and all around nice guy. How's it going, Mark? How's things this week?
Thank you very much. You're far too kind with that. I'll have to keep paying you some money, I think, for that.
Yeah.
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's been a right week. We're heading into December. It is fully fledged December now, so we're in Christmas mode. Yeah. But have you heard? Have you heard that this week there's a new TV program coming out with the Great British Bake Off format?
No. What's that?
Well, it's got contestants sculpting sort of head and shoulders of people who have died. They're going to call it Ghostbusters.
No, I don't even know why I'm laughing at that.
Was it the delivery?
I think to all of our listeners, I'm just going to apologise on behalf of Mark for that awful game.
Thank you.
Why am I laughing? Okay, so let's go through what we're going to be discussing on today's episode then. So along with everything cosplay, we're going to say happy birthday to Afterlife. It's been just over a year since the release of the film, and Mark and I are going to run through our thoughts on the movie a year later and give you a lowdown on what we think and maybe where that film stacks up alongside the originals. We've also got a special guest on the show today, the Bearded Buster. He's going to be in the back of the Ecto talking to us about his amazing charity fundraising, being pretty much insta-famous and generally being the Ghostbusters community, all-around nice guy. As always, Mark and I are going to be vocal on anything and everything we deem noteworthy that's happening with the Ghostbusting world. And with that in mind, with things that are happening in the Ghostbusters world, I think probably one of the things for us to lead off with in the beginning is something which is called Cross the Streams. Now, I know that this is a new initiative that, Mark, you've been pretty dedicated to setting up. So do you want to tell us about what that is and what we're going to get out of that?
Yeah, I've been a little bit hands-on with it, I suppose you could say. For those who haven't seen yet, I've put a group on Facebook, and it's basically just getting a group of ghost heads in the UK as close together as possible in one room at an event, just to meet, have a good time, and spend some time together. Is basically it. The idea sort of spawned out of like PKE surge they have in the US. Not sort of looking at anything quite on that scale yet, but it's great just to be able to sort of get as many people who like Ghostbusters, who love Ghostbusters, who want to dress up as whatever they like, or even not, come as yourself, just if you like Ghostbusters, and just gather together and enjoy being each other's company.
Well, it sounds awesome. I know that obviously the last time that something like this happened in the UK was probably EctoCon. I would say that's probably the largest gathering of Ghostbusters fans that has happened to date, to be fair. I think the only downside of EctoCon was probably the fact it was, very far up north in terms of the country, located in Scotland. So for those people who are down south, it might have presented a challenge just in terms of the logistics of getting up there. So am I right in thinking that you're really looking to make this a little bit more centralised?
Yeah, I'll be looking at doing a few things just to try and separate this from anything that's like EctoCon. I think it's important to sort of try and separate the two. The EctoCon is a fantastic thing. I know Mr. Crank is going to be putting together something else very soon, but that's going to be a Ghostbusters convention. So like a convention specially for for Ghostbusters stuff. This is a social gathering, so it's going to be just get together, and whatever happens, happens. Whatever stays in cross the stream, whatever happens in cross the stream stays in cross the stream, sort of thing. So the first one that I've sort of organising is going to be at MegaCon in Birmingham at the NEC on the 25th of March next year, which is 2023 to all those future people listening to this podcast. And I am considering so once we've done that one, obviously see how successful it is. There's quite a lot of people sort of registering their interest for it already, which is fantastic. And what I might do is look for conventions around the UK and not just keep it within Birmingham and within the Midlands, but perhaps dot some around, perhaps look towards Manchester or look towards somewhere nearer south, and sort of so we can get different gatherings of people, so that we're not not everyone's having to travel from wherever, but we all sort of get a fair chance.
I think it's a great idea because, obviously what you get is you get all the different franchises that are around, within the UK, and those franchises always tend to do conventions that are in their geographical area, as opposed to multiple franchises or individuals all getting together at one single convention. Whenever you go to a convention, there's always a spattering of Ghostbusters, isn't there? You'll be with your group. There might be one or two other people that turn up that you have a conversation with, but it's very rare that you'll bump into multiple franchises of Ghostbusters at a particular convention. So I think it'll be a great opportunity.
I think it's an excuse to let everyone know that there's a chance that there's going to be a lot of us together in one place, and that might encourage people to travel. It might encourage people to get together as well. So, like you say, I mean, I'm most of the time a solo cosplayer because there's no one in Worcester other than myself that does this sort of thing. I sometimes meet up with you in the East Midlands guys, which is fantastic. But a lot of the time, I go to a convention, I'm there on my own. So it's great to sort of say, we're all going to get together at this one particular time. It's way off in advance, so we can all sort of organise ourselves and get together and just cause some mayhem.
I think as well, it's a great opportunity. When you look at the like the Facebook groups and you see people's builds, whether they're doing ecto goggles, traps, etc. It's a great opportunity to actually get together, see those props in person that you've maybe been following those threads. Either maybe through GB fans or through different Facebook groups, and it's an opportunity for Ghostbusters who are in building props and making costumes to not only just get together and have a good time, but also share some tips and share tricks of people that have been there before, perhaps done it and got different ways of doing things, and really sharing the knowledge in a bit more of a social setting rather than through messages and Facebook groups.
Yeah, that's absolutely what this is going to be about as well. And a few of us, there's about sort of 15, 20 of us that got together at MCM Comic Con in Birmingham in November. And it was fantastic to see the amount of people with all their proton packs and stuff. And it's exactly what you described. You get together, and even though we've all got a proton pack ourselves, we all look at each other's, we all sort of study it and go, where did you get that bit from? How did you do this? You all sort of learn from each other just by talking about it. And we're all big nerds and we all love talking about this sort of stuff. And, none of us get bored by it, which is fantastic. We can all always ask the same sort of questions and find a mass amount of enjoyment from it. So that's what this whole thing is about. It's just about getting together and enjoying it in a way that you want to enjoy it. Yeah,
definitely. So for those people listening then, if they want to come and check it out, where should they be going?
So go to facebook.com/groups/Cross the Streams UK. And you can also go onto Instagram, which is Cross the Streams UK as well.
Obviously, this is all going to be taking place in the new year after Christmas. We are coming into Christmas at the moment. And for those listeners who maybe have been following along to our Insta or maybe seen some of our posts, with Christmas in mind, one of the things that we put a poll up with recently on Instagram is Ghostbusters 2 a Christmas movie? Now, I know that you and I have probably got some differing opinions about this, but before we go through our opinions, let's go through the results. Okay. So
what was the results of the poll?
Okay, so the results of the poll are: is Ghostbusters 2 a Christmas movie? And the results are as follows. A whopping 73% have voted yes, and 27% have voted no.
Well,
now, I'll be honest, I'm in the yes category. So I don't oh, opposing viewpoints. Now, I've got to be honest, when it comes to me saying yes, it's a Christmas movie, I don't necessarily think it has an overwhelming Christmas theme to it. It's not like watching, Gremlins or Home Alone, where that Christmas theme is intrinsically woven throughout the movie. But it takes place around that time. You've got the montage with the Santa hats. You've got the whole of New York coming together, New Year's Eve, etc. So for me, when I think of Ghostbusters 2, I certainly wouldn't say that Ghostbusters 2 is a summer movie, for example. It fits more to me for a Christmas movie.
Okay.
But I know that you don't think so. So what's your thoughts?
Right. Firstly, I'll say that you're absolutely correct. It's set around Christmas. You see them wear the Santa hats in the montage, like you say. And yeah, quite rightly so. You mentioned Gremlins and Home Alone, and I'll stick in Die Hard in there as well. I will say all of those films are not Christmas movies, and I'll tell you for why. With every one of those films,
go for it.
If you take out Christmas, it has no effect on the film at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my point. So a Christmas movie would be something like, say, The Santa Claus or Elf or Santa Claus the movie, or any other film where Christmas itself is integral to the story or the plot line of the film. It's not for Ghostbusters. I will argue, actually, that Ghostbusters 2, if you're going to say something in the plot line needs to happen around a time set, I would say that it was New Year's Eve. But that is still...
Yeah, I agree.
That is still a tenuous link, because you could actually have any major point in the calendar and it would still work. You could say American Independence Day, for instance, and it would still work in the same way. So that is my argument that I'm setting forward, that because Christmas is not integral to the plot, it's not a Christmas film.
I certainly can't argue with you, I've got to be honest. I think you do raise a good point. Yeah, I think it comes down to people's overall experience of the film. It might even impact on when they first saw that movie.
Absolutely.
If you first see that movie at Christmas, it could be a Christmas movie. Ultimately, at the end of the day, 70+% of people disagree with you. So whether you're on a losing battle there or not, I don't know. We'll soon see.
I think we need to put another poll that says, now that you've heard the podcast, do you agree with Mark? And you should say yes or yes.
Yeah, very one-sided. I like it.
Anyway, there you go. That's the debate. We'd love to hear your comments. Let us know what you think about that. If you still agree or disagree, that's fine.
Definitely. And you know what? On that subject, actually, is a good point. If you're listening to this and you want to send us in your thoughts about anything that we've discussed, or you want to give your thoughts on the poll, or even just want to drop us a message, if you head over to our Instagram page, which is SMAF Podcast or SMAF Podcast, you'll find a link in our bio, and if you click on that link in our bio, there's an option there for you to actually go and leave us an audio message. So you can go and leave us an audio message, and then in future shows we'll respond to that, perhaps play those audio messages on air, and that can form part of the show moving forward.
Yeah, so just come and say hi.
Come and say hi. Come and say hello.
Yeah.
So let's go into probably our main topic before we get into speaking to our guest today. Ghostbusters Afterlife. So it's a year now since Ghostbusters Afterlife has come out, which it's flown by incredibly quickly, if I'm completely honest. I mean,
absolutely,
certainly. I think maybe because of the build-up for the movie, obviously for all of the many, many years that people wanted, a true Ghostbusters 3, and not only that, you then had COVID and the delays and things like that. I would say that the apprehension and the anticipation and the build-up for that movie for me was pretty intense. So to get to that point where I was finally sat in the cinema and seeing that movie, to say that that's a year ago is crazy, because it literally does not seem like that at all.
Doesn't feel like that at all, no. No, you're absolutely right. The build up because it was delayed. Yeah, that build up got worse and worse, didn't it? Because it's like for people like us who have been waiting for a film for 30 years, I can't believe I can say that, to be honest. They've got, it's finally going to be a film that comes out. And this is after, obviously, 2016, where we may have felt that we didn't get the film we wanted. We're now getting the film that we wanted, or we think we want anyway. And yeah, we're waiting for it. And then COVID hits, and you're like, oh, sorry, that you're going to wait. You're going to wait another 3 months, and now we're moving it, and then we're moving it again to the year after, and then we're moving it another 6 months. So it was another year and a half, and it was just it got excruciating to finally be able to sit in that theatre and go and relax while watching it. Was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it could have gone one or two ways. You could have think, well, are they delaying the film because they're doing reshoots, and that might cause you to be nervous. But then on the other side of it, having the film being delayed through COVID, it's an opportunity for the filmmakers to really, go through that film with a fine tooth comb and get it to, really how they want it. So I actually think overall it was probably much more beneficial, for Jason to go through that film and really hammer down, the changes. I mean, you've only got to look at, for example, when the trailer first came out and the ghost kind of came careering out of that well. In the trailer, it was one color, but then in the second trailer, they changed the color already. So there's clearly changes made.
Just with the special effects, definitely there was change. I think there was changes with the proton stream as well. I think early footage from the trailer was showing a purple proton stream, which to us nerds is very important to have the blue and orange that we know and love.
I know, yeah.
Just probably they did it. But yeah, it was definitely evidence sort of nearer in that time period where it was delayed, where we were hearing inklings of reshoots and the actors being seen in certain places for different things, and then also to see behind the scenes footage of the Ecto-1 and a containment unit turning up at the LA firehouse, which obviously then turned out to be the end scene with Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fact that they were able to then add bits and add those little touches was a nice thing. It was beneficial for the film.
So on that subject, then I suppose after having 12 months of time passed between first seeing that movie and being able to have repeated viewings, not only in the cinema but also at home, and really digest the movie, I think it's probably a good time for certainly for us to look back and give our thoughts on what we think of the movie as a whole. So I think I'm probably going to lead with this, if that's okay.
Yeah, you carry on.
So I think for me, I suppose what it comes down to is Ghostbusters Afterlife as good as Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2? My answer to that is no, which may be controversial, especially when it comes to Ghostbusters 2. I'm sure there's many people out there that put Afterlife above Ghostbusters 2. Now, I think probably one of the things that is important for me to say at this point is, even though I'm saying it's not as good as Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2, I am not saying that Ghostbusters Afterlife is not a good movie. I actually think it's a great movie. And I think it's a phenomenal platform, to build upon and delve more into the world of Ghostbusters. So I suppose then, the next question is why don't I think it's as good as the first two movies? Well, actually, I don't think it's the fault of Ghostbusters Afterlife at all of why it's not as good as Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2. I actually think it's more likely because it's the fault within myself rather than the movie and the filmmakers. So what do I mean by that? So when I look back at the first movies, I really have to consider why they had such a profound impact on me. And I think it probably breaks down into three key areas. So the first key area that I think is important to consider is, I think that period from the very late 70s through to, I would say, the mid 90s, I think that is probably the best period of filmmaking that we've had.
Certainly very good.
A lot of the movies that came out, during that time period, they were a first. Not only were they not only was it a first time that stories like that had been told before, no one had seen a Terminator before it was made. No one had seen a RoboCop, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Gremlins, Goonies, etc. It's the first time all these types of stories were being told. So it was brand new from a storytelling perspective. But then not only were those stories brand new, but you also had, an era where visual effects were also taking shape, rapidly, from Star Wars being filmed all the way through the 80s and 80s and 90s, visual effects came an awful long way. So during that period of time, not only do I think it was a first for, storytelling, but it's also a first time that we're seeing visual effects of that nature as well. So going into a movie like Ghostbusters and seeing that stuff on screen that had never been seen before, for me, that resonated with me and probably a lot of other people. And when you look at films today, most of the films that come out today, they're really a variation on very similar themes of movies that have already come before. You can't help but comparisons be made to the originals. So that's the first thing that I have to take into consideration. The fact that the first time I saw Ghostbusters, it was a really first time I'd seen something like that. It's the first time I'd seen special effects like that, and because of that, it really resonated with me. So that takes me then to the second point when I've got to consider whether how I feel about Afterlife compared to the originals. Second point for me is, I think, age. When Ghostbusters came out, I was 4. By the time Ghostbusters 2 came out, I was 9. So literally the perfect age range to see those movies. So then what I've got to consider is, not only am I seeing those movies for the first time, but what I'm also doing is I'm at an age where I'm 4 years old, going through to 9 years old. And at that age, I'm perfectly able to go off in my own little childlike mind of wonder and visualize, stories when I'm playing out with my friends, and visualize things. And you don't really have that when you're older, not to the same degree as you do when you're a child, to have that, that form of wonderment and being able to really easily slip into your own little world of make-believe. So that's a really powerful combination to have a movie, I think, imprint, on your psyche. Not only have you got that storytelling and the visual effects, but then you also add on to that with, your own childlike visualizations and imagination when you're out playing with sticks in the yard, and that stick's a proton wand, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in that, in that brand and that property when it's something that you really love. So when you sum all that up and you understand how, certainly for me, how those first 2 movies made me feel, taking all that into consideration, going into Afterlife is going to have a nigh on impossible task of making me feel that same way, because I'm not a 4-year-old kid anymore. And unfortunately, I'm jaded from the real world, and I'm not that innocent little kid, and I can't. It's not like I can go out in the yard and play with sticks, but I'll probably get some funny looks. But
I do.
Yeah. Well, Afterlife has got a hard task on its hands from the outset. If people are going to go into that movie and come out expecting that they are going to feel the same way as they did when they saw the first 2 Ghostbusters. So for me, what I think that really sums up and comes down to is it's not really, do I think Ghostbusters Afterlife is better or worse than the first 2 movies? I think what I'm really saying is how does it make me feel in comparison to the first 2 movies? And it made me feel pretty good, I've got to be honest. To go into a movie like Ghostbusters Afterlife, and it hits all those familiar beats that you've been longing for and waiting for, and to see those characters brought back on screen, and to see those visual effects, and to see the story get enhanced and told, and delves a bit deeper into different people's backstories, or it delves a bit deeper into what people have done since the second movie. I think we got the absolute best movie that we probably could have got, given how things could have turned out. I think, just to kind of wrap up as well, I think it's also really interesting that when it comes to movies like Ghostbusters Afterlife or, The Force Awakens, or any of those type of movies, I think we live in a really interesting era at the moment of nostalgia, because these movies that are coming out at the moment, we've never really had this opportunity before, because for something like Ghostbusters Afterlife to come out, first of all, there has to be a pre-existing property, right, that has been around for at least 20 plus years. And that pre-existing property has to, have been very successful. It has to have formed a loyal fan base. And if you're going to make a new movie around that, you want the original actors to still be around. And you need to make sure that the demand is still there for that movie. We've never really had that before, up until, I would say, probably the past 10 years, where there was this deep-rooted pop culture that has been formed through different movies, whether it's Back to the Future, Gremlins, Aliens, anything like any of those movies. If they had remakes that came out now, whether it's Gremlins, Goonies, or anything like that, you could bring some of those original members of the cast back. I'm not saying it'd be a good idea, but you could, and it would still spark off those same, nostalgia beats with the music swells and the original cast and things like that. And we've never really been in that position before from a movie making perspective, I would say, until probably the past 10 years. So I just find that point, quite interesting.
I'd agree with you there, because I think one of the important things to think about with that is that we had a generation of filmmakers from around the 80s who were pioneers of movies and making all these great things, and then you had a fan base that grew out of very young people who liked those films. 30 years later, they're now the generation who's making films and want to make, they want to make films like that. They want to make, not remakes, they want to make sequels to the films that they liked. And so because of that, because they're big fans of the film, we know that there's a huge amount of big Ghostbusters fans on set for Afterlife. They're wanting to make the film they want to see themselves. It's not just another job. It's not just another film production company who are just trying to make a quick buck. These are people who want to make the film good, and it's the next generation coming in. So I think that's an important sort of thing to remember. I think if we had a Ghostbusters film maybe 15 years ago, it would have been sort of halfway between that. It would have been a little bit diluted. It would have been worse in 2016, I think. If we had something sort of early 2000 and that sort of era, it would have been half-arsed. It's probably the reason why Bill Murray never wanted to do a Ghostbusters film, because it would have just been for the sake of doing another Ghostbusters film. So yeah, having that generation that's grown up with these films and then wanting to do their own version, I think is the important bit there in your point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, who knows what? I know that throughout the years, there's been many scripts which have, floated around regarding potential Ghostbusters 3 movies, and it'd be interesting to see what those scripts were like. But the fact that they didn't get greenlit, and I know Ivan was very, he was very protective of the property, which just goes to actually show that when Afterlife came along, I genuinely think that if Jason had presented a treatment for Ghostbusters Afterlife and Ivan felt that it wasn't up to his standard, I don't think it would have gone ahead, irrespective of the fact that Jason is his son. I think Ivan would have been very protective of it. But that's testament to not only Ivan, though, but also testament to Jason's filmmaking to bring something like this to the screen, which is, in some respects, the movie, it's really Ghostbusters in some respects. I mean, it is really Ghostbusters, and in other respects, it really isn't Ghostbusters as well. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're just presented with different, there's different dramatical beats of the movie which haven't, necessarily been in a Ghostbusters movie before. So it was a very different type of Ghostbusters movie, but the DNA of Ghostbusters Afterlife is undoubtedly a Ghostbusters movie through and through. And I think that's also testament to why within the the fan community, it's actually been greeted with such adulation and such love. No, you've only got to look at, if I compare it to something like, The Force Awakens, that was a very mixed bag of people when The Force Awakens came out. There was some people that loved it from purely the nostalgia side of things. There was other people that, really hated on it as well. I don't feel that with Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's been anything like that to that degree at all. I mean, of course, there's going to be people out there who, maybe aren't keen on Ghostbusters Afterlife and they have their favorite. Perhaps they like Answer the Call, which is also, valid. Everyone can, like a Ghostbusters movie. But I just feel that overall, Ghostbusters Afterlife has been embraced by the community, and
I think it's wider than that as well. I think it not only has it been embraced by the community because we think it's a good film. I've heard no end of people mention the new film Afterlife, who aren't part of the community, who are completely ignorant to everything else that we consider normal. We sort of forget sometimes that we're in this bubble that we've enclosed ourselves in, and we know everything that's going on in the world of Ghostbusters, and there are people outside who didn't know there's a new film coming out until the trailer came out, a month before, and those people have liked it as well and loved it as a good film. So I think that was very important, and I think the fact that it wasn't trying to be a remake, it wasn't trying to retell the story of the first film. Like, here's another group of people who have developed ghostbusting equipment and they're going to go out and do this as a business. They could have quite easily have done that storyline again. Even in the same timeline as Ghostbusters, but the fact that it was a completely different idea and a completely different storyline of this girl who discovers her granddad's lab and equipment, and it actually just goes out and messes about with it, which is very irresponsible. Should never do that, especially if it's a nuclear accelerator. But I think that's the power of Ghostbusters. Is that this power of Ghostbusters, like it's a religion? Is that you can take this idea of normal, everyday people doing this really mundane job of cleaning up ghost mess, and you can actually put that, if you want to, in any other genre of film, and it would still probably work.
I think also another thing that I was really kind of happy about is when Answer the Call came out, there was an awful lot of backlash regarding the female leads of the movie, and there was a lot of hate that came out of the community around that, and it did make you question what type of community is it that I'm in when people have such a they spit such vitriol about female cast members. So what is really heartwarming to see is you have Ghostbusters Afterlife come out with a really strong female lead. And McKenna Grace killed it in that role. She absolutely killed it. I think when it comes to child actors, it's really hard to get child actors where they really capture the magic of the movies. If you look at Goonies, that for me is the gold standard of like child acting, where every single kid in that movie, you can watch that as an adult and you don't feel like you're watching a kid's movie. Because I think that's a danger sometimes when you have children in leading roles, is it can very easily fall into a child's movie, a kid's movie, and that can alienate, the adult side of the audience. But with the Goonies, it doesn't do that, and Afterlife doesn't do that either. You've got a very, young, capable actress in that role who kills it. She absolutely kills it, and I'm really looking forward to see, how she grows and what her role is going to be.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see. I definitely think that now Jason Reitman's almost wiped the slate clean in terms of what we expect from a Ghostbusters film. Now we've had this sort of bridge film where we're bridging the gap between Ghostbusters 2 and this new generation of whatever is going to happen. He can literally do whatever he likes with this now, and it'll work.
The thing I find really exciting as well is, the new Indiana Jones trailer came out just the other day.
Oh, it did, yeah.
I don't know if you've had a chance to see that yet.
Yeah.
What's amazing is, the visual effects now are getting to the point with, the whether you call it deep fake technology or the age reduction technology, whatever process it is that they're using, that young Harrison Ford looks incredibly good on that trailer.
It does, yeah.
I mean, really good. When I watched that, I was like, wow. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I watched, The Mandalorian with the Luke Skywalker reveal, I mean, that was phenomenal. But it's still, it's off slightly.
That was early days.
But I could forgive it for being off. Yeah, and I can still forgive that being off slightly because it was early days, but also, again, it gave the audiences really what they wanted to see from Luke Skywalker. So you can forgive it for that. But I suppose what my point is now is, with another Ghostbusters movie, it's going to be pretty easy. I would think. Well, not easy. That's probably simplifying it too much. But it's not going to be too difficult now to have flashbacks or time jumps through the storyline and actually go back and seeing the younger original guys, the Ghostbusters. I'm sure if Bill Murray doesn't want to be on set, I'm sure he's more than happy to lend his voice. I mean, he did it for Garfield. Come on.
Oh well, let's not talk about Garfield.
So it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see where the new movie goes. I've got a lot of theories which are completely based on absolutely nothing whatsoever. But and I'm not going to speculate right now. But I just think it's going to be really interesting to see where the movie goes. Whether Phoebe and Podcast are still central characters to the story, or is it the fact that the franchise rights alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams? Maybe there is a whole new team of Ghostbusters, and Phoebe and Podcast are there more in a supportive capacity, given their history with the Ghostbusters. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
I'd like to see that side of things. Yeah, I think if we're thinking about what we know that the working title is Firehouse, okay, and that usually means that it has some significance to do with the film. We know Rust City was a line from Afterlife where they first shot the proton pack. So we can sort of guess that it's going to be centered around the firehouse because we see it at the end in that extended clip with Ernie Hudson when he rolls the Ecto-1 back in. We see the containment unit. We know that Winston he's made his millions because he's got that company. He's probably bought everything. He's probably going to build it again from the ground up. So yeah, I'm totally agreeing that it's probably going to be less about, I don't know, I think it's probably going to be less about a group of normal guys that go out, and it's probably going to be more about the business itself, I would like to think. You've probably got your main character of Winston who's running this thing. It's probably going to be about the business of ghostbusting and, like you say, the supporting role of Podcast and Phoebe, who come along because they've had an involvement and they know, that perhaps there's something that that's been left that that they need to sort of go back and deal with. I don't know. That's my speculation.
I'm going to say something really controversial here.
Oh,
really controversial. Now, don't get me wrong.
Hang on, I've got some Pringles here. Let me have them first. Go on, I'm ready now.
So, don't get me wrong. I love the 59 Caddy. It's absolutely iconic.
Yeah,
but I do think we're probably ready for a new Ecto. If I'm honest, it's not just it's not just an old car now. That was an antique. Yeah. And given all Winston's money and everything he's got, would you still be rolling around in a 59 Caddy? If nothing else, it'll give all those wannabe Ecto builders out there maybe the chance to build a screen accurate Ecto out of something which is maybe a lot easier to find.
No, what they'll do is they'll just pick another car that they found one of somewhere. It's just as iconic looking.
Yeah, what car can we have from like the 80s or 90s, which is really rare, where there's maybe only like a few of them left?
I'd like to see a Ford Transit.
A Ford Transit.
Ford Transit Ecto.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Well, I think probably with that in mind, that's our thoughts on the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie. Should we have a word with our guest and get their thoughts?
Go on then. Who have we got?
Our guest today is a member of the Northeast Ghostbusters. He has an ever-growing following on Instagram, which has certainly exploded over the course of the past 12 months. He's known for putting out some fantastic patches, some T-shirt designs under the Bearded Busters brand, as well as some awesome content regarding pat builds, prop builds, and generally just putting out some awesome content. I'm talking about, of course, Proton Building, the one and only Bearded Buster, aka Mr. Tony Beresford. Welcome to the show, man.
I do. Welcome.
Hey, good to see you guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to have you here. Now, Tony, obviously, Mark and I have just been discussing, prior to you coming on just now, our thoughts and feelings about Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's been a year since the film's come out. So can you tell us a little bit about what the experience was like for you? Where did you watch it? Did you go in full kit? And what were your feelings after that first initial viewing of Ghostbusters Afterlife?
Wow. Well, I didn't know you were going to start with that question, but I actually watched Afterlife again last night. As I mentioned previously, my wife's away, so, you know, you get to watch what you want.
Sure.
God, going back. Yeah, I can't believe it's been a year. I missed the premiere in London. I know some of you guys went. I was offered a ticket, but I just couldn't get the time off work. That was, you know, probably one of the deep regrets, but I had the day off work. Thought the local cinemas would be packed. They weren't. You know, it was nothing like a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
We had an IMAX cinema near us, and I booked tickets ages in advance. Kept watching the booking scheme, and like hardly anyone was booking. And my friend Leon was going at the same time, and I'll tell you, the cinema was so empty that that he was able to join us on the day. But in the lead up to that, after I'd booked the ticket, I got a phone call while I was at work from an unknown number, and I wouldn't answer that at all, but for some reason I was compelled to answer it. And there's a lovely lady on the other end of the phone who was from Sky Television, telling me I'd won a competition to have a video call like this one with Jason Reitman. So I was like, what? And she also said, we need you to see the film before you have this call. So we're going to get you free tickets to go and see an advanced screening of Afterlife.
Wow.
It was a View cinema, that was. And that was packed. So I'd got to see it in a big audience, not full of Ghostbusters fans. I think a lot of them were people who'd got like free tickets and weren't sure that they wouldn't care if it was like, you know, Hotel Marigold 4 or something, you know, they just wanted to go and see a free film. So
yeah, of course.
I was just a bag of nerves. Like, was it going to be any good? Were we going to get decent seats because it was a freebie and a free-for-all? You know, we eventually did get good seats. My wife was like, she said, like, she only ever sees me like that when I'm flying on a plane because I'm not a great flyer. She was just like, just calm down, just calm down. And I was like, just full of nerves for this film. And the film played out, and I was just blown away by it. You know, it's all the emotions. Yeah. I laughed, I cried, I hurled, to quote Wayne's World. It was just fantastic, and I still think it's a fantastic achievement. And then 2 nights later, on release day, to be on a phone call with Jason Reitman and to be able to tell him that to his face, that was just an amazing time. Yeah, so Tuesday was the Sky preview screening, and Thursday was the empty Cineworld IMAX screening. But Saturday, I joined the Northeast Ghostbusters up at an Odeon in Newcastle, and that was more of a celebration of the film. And we were there with our green screen. There was loads of fans turning up. There's kids dressed in flight suits and proton packs, some grown-up busters coming along, and it just felt like a massive celebration. And we got tickets to see the Saturday night IMAX version, and that was absolutely packed. And when the film finished and people started to stand up, we were sort of turning around and shouting, "No, stay in your seats, there's more to see." Yeah, so that was great, and that definitely felt like the big celebration release date.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, you know, it's not like Star Wars, is it, where there's always something coming out on Disney Plus, or there's always content being put out. So with the Ghostbusters film, there's such an anticipation for what it's going to be like because although we've had Answer the Call, obviously this is the first film that really carried on that storyline. So, even for myself going into that movie, there was an awful lot of anticipation in terms of what are we going to get. My personal opinion is I think what we got was probably the best that we could have hoped for, given
absolutely
everything involved. They filmed it through COVID and things like that. I think it's fantastic. I certainly think it's a worthy entry into the Ghostbusters universe for sure, and forms a fantastic springboard moving forward.
No, I was saying, going back to that empty Cineworld experience, you have to think, we as a community are still relatively small compared to things like Star Wars and Marvel. We were all pumped for it for a year before it came out, right?
Yeah.
In the month of it coming out, I had work colleagues coming up to me and saying, "Hey, did you know there was a new Ghostbusters film coming out?" I was like, "Yeah, where have you been?" But to them it's like news. They've just seen it advertised on in the newspaper or something, and they're like, "I didn't know." And I'll tell you another thing as well. My in-laws watched it on streaming. They didn't get to see it at the cinema, so they waited till it was streaming. And my sister-in-law said to me after she'd watched it, "Why did it say for Harold at the end?" So I said, "Well, Harold Ramis had died." And she was like, "But he was in it, so did he die after it?" I was like, no, that wasn't him. That was like, but he looked just like him. And I was like, and you have to remember that people are completely removed from it. We are, I live and breathe stuff, right? Everything that happens, I like to think, I might not be breaking the news, but I'm across it when it comes out. Other people don't care in the same way we care, and we do have to recognise that.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I know that when I went to the cinema to see it, I think everybody gets something different from that movie. So you've got your general, your casual viewers who are going to see it for what it is. I think as Ghostbusters fans, if you know all of that history between Harold and Bill, it makes it that much more sweeter watching that and the closure in the film, and that's one aspect to it. But then on the other side of it, I've got my wife who went to go and see it. She's not a Ghostbusters fan at all. She tolerates it from my perspective, but she went to go and see the film, and it was only maybe 12 months before that unfortunately her dad passed away. So that whole ending sequence with Harold and things like that, that really emotionally hit her hard with that. But she still came out of the film saying it was absolutely fantastic, and she really loved it. So I think it just shows you how that film can resonate with people in a different way, dependent upon their own individual life experiences.
Absolutely. And I think, Jason and his dad really pulled on every bit of nostalgia they could. I mean, some people would criticize it and say, why was it Gozer again? Gozer's not a he or a she. It can take any form it wants. Why does it look the same? But it was kind of like there to pull on all those nostalgic bits, but to also act as a bridge between 84 and 89 and where the future's going, and to wrap some of that 84, 89 stuff up, and to give us a bridging gap for kids today to understand how their parents felt in 84, 89. But there's also, like, I was listening to another podcast, Yes Have Some, the other day, and they were talking to Rob Simonson, the guy who did the soundtrack, the score. And he was saying he intentionally went and listened to like Amblin soundtracks. He listened to E.T., he listened to Back to the Future, he listened to Indiana Jones, he listened to Jaws even, and brought some of those things into the soundtrack intentionally to get you in a zone, so that you were really feeling all those feelings of nostalgia, and so it felt like the old films. And no one's got a smartphone in that film. It's set today, but it's in this small town in America, and no one's got smartphones. The house they live in's not got flat screen TVs and things, so it harked back to the 80s, and I think that's another reason it really worked.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Even podcast stuff that he's holding, he's got a microphone and almost like an 8-track recorder in his satchel. That's not as modern as it could have been. He could have had a handheld Zoom recorder, couldn't he? Is what most people would have had these days, something like that.
And even when he offers Phoebe the podcast to listen to, it's on like a beat-up old USB stick. So even that technology is a bit behind. And that bit almost like seems like out of place, but intentionally good, because how else is he going to transfer it to? Because they don't have the smartphones with them, they don't have the laptops with them, so it's like here's a physical, hard piece of media for you to get it on.
Yeah, and it's that sort of technology that Ghostbusters sort of lives on as well, isn't it? Because we've got these sort of massive machines we put on our backs, and no technology looks like that, and it doesn't look old and it doesn't look new. You know, it's this weird sort of analog technology that they sit in.
I think as well the props from Ghostbusters, they're timeless in my opinion, because they, you know, it's not something where, you know, they've got an LED screen on it where now it looks good, but in 20 years you're going to say, man, that looks really old or something like that. It's a completely timeless prop which fits perfectly in an 80s movie, and it fits perfectly in a modern day movie as well. I think that's probably why there's so much of a fan base for the props, because, you know, for me, you know, they're instantly recognizable. I'm sat here looking off to my left, looking at it now. You know, they're instantly recognizable, and you know, there's not very many props, I think, that are made for movies where they really do look like it looks like it could do what you see on screen. That's it for me. It really does have that industrial feel to it, and it looks like it's dangerous, you know, looking at something like that. You know, and you can't get better than something like that you stick on your back that's got warning and danger stickers all over it. I mean, it's a pretty cool piece of kit.
And how many times have we been at cons when grown adults have asked us if it actually works?
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I've had that plenty of times. Yeah,
It
always makes me smirk a little bit.
Yeah, I get a lot of kids asking me if I can fire it, and my stock response is just to say, I haven't got a license to fire it in this area, and it would be dangerous, and I'd be burning holes in walls.
So Tony, like going back to something you said earlier on, you know, the whole experience of you winning that competition through Sky and having that conversation with Jason. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What was your conversation about, and you know, what happened during that call?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got it. I managed to sweet talk someone at Sky to sending me the recording of the Zoom call, but it's like fully NDA'd, and, you know, can't release it and put it on YouTube. It's for my benefit only. So, but funnily enough, I've never watched it. I don't know why. So the experience was, it was me and a other fan, a guy called Sean, I think his name was, and Alex Zane. And Alex Zane joined the call. It was a 45-minute call, and Alex Zane joined for the first 15 minutes. And his job was basically to make sure neither me nor Sean were psychopaths. He was chatting to us, making sure we were, like, you know, able to speak properly, that we had questions, that, you know, we weren't just going to sit there going, and, you know, and then in the end he just said, look, you guys have got this. I'm just going to introduce you. It's over to you. So Jason comes. Hey, Jason, nice to meet you. Jason freezes. Jason disappears for 5 while they're trying to fix the kit. Alex, he was great. He was a great host. We carried on talking. Jason came back, and it was really good. The standout moment for me was they were asking us what we liked about the movie, and this Sean guy goes, "Oh, really? Just the end when you see Egon's ghost," and Jason was just like, "Whoa, whoa." What? And Alex said, "No, Jason, this is just a private recording. It's not going out live. We're not spoiling it for the nation.
Oh, man.
It's just a private thing." And he was like, whoa. And we just sort of calmed down. But yeah, just lots of chats about stuff. And then I being as close to it as I am, and probably not as close, I was probably more close to it than Sean. I sort of talked to Jason about what I found really great was that as a community, we kept the lid on it, right? So I know there's that screening for the Hollywood screening where they showed it to the press and the people who run cinemas and that sort of thing. And then later they showed it at New York Comic Con. And I remember a lot of us just like, oh, it's going to be spoiled then. Everyone's going to tell us the ending and whatnot. But credit to Jason and credit to the fans that were in that room. I didn't see one thing. I didn't see any leaks. I didn't see anyone telling me the ending. I didn't see anyone's dodgy, shaky camera footage of Bill Murray or anything like that. It really did keep the lid on it. And I think that is testament to our fan community, because I think if it was Star Wars or Marvel, that's on YouTube before you know it. Yeah, but I should add, it was fantastic. And Jason was so warm and friendly. And it was as easy as I'm chatting to you guys now. It was just like chatting to old friends, and Alex Zane as well. I mean, obviously he's a personality in the UK, but again, it was just effortless and such a great experience. And the recording actually stopped, and I think Sky had sort of finished there a bit, but Jason stayed on the line for a bit, and we were chatting some more, and then he was showing off some of the things that he's got in his study, like some props and things that he'd got from the movie. So yeah, definitely fantastic that he also took the time to do that, because remember, this was the Thursday, this was the release date, and the eve of the release date in the USA. So yeah, top bloke, absolute legend.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think, especially not only just a testament to the fan community, but even to the people that work on the film, because there's thousands of people that work on that film, and those scenes must go from, VX house to editing suite. And, there's going to be so many people that have their hands on that footage through that process. And for nothing to come out whatsoever is phenomenal. I mean, even when I was down at that premiere in London, and Jason and Ivan were there, they came out with Alex Zane, actually, coincidentally enough, he was there as well. And right before the movie started, one of the things that Jason said is, number one, stay for the credits because there's some cool stuff that happens there, and number two, what do you think the most important thing is? And then and that's when he said, don't spoil it for anyone. So you could see that from his perspective, that film had been delayed for well over a year, and I think he was really conscious that he wanted people to have the experience of watching that film for the first time with absolutely no spoilers. And I think because that happened for me, obviously for yourself, Tony, it enhanced that film to a level that it wouldn't have got to had I known more about it. Because in this day and age, as you say, there's leaks all over the place and things come out. So to go in that film literally completely like, I don't know what I'm going to watch here. I don't know what I'm going to see. I think the last time that happened to me, where I went to go and see a film and I didn't even really know anything about what it was about, was probably The Matrix. I can remember going to see The Matrix, and I know that at that point in time, there was loads of marketing around what is The Matrix, but I hadn't got a clue what The Matrix was. I had no idea walking into that movie what I was going to see and and how it was going to play out. And I think that's probably my only other experience of that, apart from Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I'm smiling because mine was Austin Powers. I was a huge Wayne's World fan, and Austin Powers came out. I hadn't got a clue what it was about. And my wife went to see it, and just from some of the first scenes on, I was just crying with laughter throughout the whole thing. And
So I know that obviously here in the UK, you're part of the Northeast Ghostbusters franchise. You're always posting pictures of your setup, and you guys have got an absolutely cracking setup. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you have for your display for your group, and do you have certain roles within the group of who actually creates all of those props and scenes, etc.? How does that come about?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit of history, actually. So Northeast Ghostbusters have been going for close to 10 years. Paul, the founding member, I suppose you might call him, was a member of the UK Ghostbusters, who are having a bit of a resurgence at the moment, I believe. But, used to be like quite prolific. And it's interesting. I was thinking about that the other day, how, it's a fun fact for you guys. The United Kingdom would fit wholly into 14 US states, so that's the sort of landmass we're talking about. And yet you go over to, America, and there's a Ghostbuster chapter per state. In some states there's more. Florida's got like 20 for some reason. I don't know why. But normally it's kind of like one per state. And yet in the UK, I mean, I live in Yorkshire. There's like 4 or 5 chapters in Yorkshire alone. I don't know why they don't just get together. I really don't. But yeah, so Northeast Ghostbusters has been going for about 8 to 10 years. Sort of Paul, I believe he won't mind me telling you this, he sort of separated off from the UK lot, mainly for geographical reasons, I think, but also because he wanted to do a lot more with charity and charity in his local area. And that's a really important part of it for me as well. So they've been going a long time. I joined Instagram to purely document my second proton pack build and start to follow people. And I was following Paul, aka Retro Props, who was building a containment unit, which to me was like, wow, what's he doing? He's building a containment unit. Look at that, that's amazing. So we got chatting. They're mainly based in Newcastle, but they did a York racecourse event, which is where I'm based in York. And so I said, I'm going to come along. And I just finished my second proton pack build. Didn't have any other electronics in it. And I said, I'll just come along. And I went along as a paying customer. And on that day, they had a member whose name, slightly gone, I'm going to say Cameron, I think his name was leaving. He was going to work abroad. So it was like his last event. And because it was his last event, he was doing the full convention and going around and seeing people he knew. So they were like a man down. So I ended up sort of stepping into the breach and helping with photographs and helping, get people in and out of proton packs for the green screen setup. So that's how I kind of got to know them, and then they invited me along to a couple of other events. And it's only when you go to an event not as a paying customer and you go like from the morning onwards that you realise just how much hard work it is. Those guys really do work hard. And if an event starts at 10, guess what? You've got to be there for 8, which means you've got to set off at 7. If it's Newcastle, which I often travel up to, you've got to be out of the house for 6 to get there for 8. So it's hard work being a Ghostbuster, right? The setup,
absolutely.
It's the containment unit, like I said, the Paul built. That's the first thing that goes up. It takes quite a while to get up. It's foldable walls that slot into place, and then the main unit clips onto that, and then we put the lights above the top, and we make sure it's all locked down and stable and isn't going to fall over. I've since added to that the metal shelves that you might have seen, which feature lots of retro technology to create that Egon's Lab type thing, which, I know you see it in Ghostbusters 84 and in 89, but that was born purely from Afterlife, just that whole basement lab set, and seeing photographs of that, I was like, I can do that. I can get that kit. So I can trawl eBay till the small hours, finding loads of old scientific gear and trying to put it together. And then after that, we have a table, which we tend to use for tombola, and the green screen, which is a really popular attraction. So we just have a green screen. We have a spirit pack and our own full-size packs. And we allow adults to put the full sizes on and kids to put the spirit pack on. And we take a picture against the green screen, and then we superimpose them onto a scene from the 1984 film, which we perhaps ought to update to some Afterlife and Ghostbusters 2 stuff.
Fantastic. Yeah.
You definitely inspired me, Tony. I know that I know when you did the kind of the thermal image of the terror dog, I had a crack at doing that myself through After Effects. I thought that was genius, and it's not the easiest thing to do in After Effects, I must say.
Yeah, no, and that's a good community thing as well, because I'd done it in After Effects, just playing with. Well, I did it in Premiere Pro actually, just playing with levels and things, and just trying to get that thermal look. But it was doing the whole background as well, and I'm going to kick myself here. A guy on Instagram in the US said, I can rotoscope that for you, send me the clip. And he cut the dog out. Yeah. So it's now on a black background. And that's just the power of this community, because he could help out do that.
I know that when I had a go at doing it myself, I went into the rotoscoping side in After Effects. And I've got some knowledge of After Effects, but it's still not an easy task to go through pretty much frame by frame trying to rotoscope it out. But it's great. I've yet to implement it actually onto an actual screen. Although what we did do actually for our last event we had an event over at Matlock in the evening, and we projected an image of Slimer onto some netting in the background. That was cool. And that went down extremely well. Yeah, that went down really well. So I'm hoping to build upon that and maybe present that in a better way moving forward. Maybe if we have some sort of like containment unit viewing port or something that I don't know yet, but something like that we could implement, I think would be pretty cool.
I think going back to that, us being closer to it and possibly caring a bit too much on our video monitor, as well as the rotoscoped Terror Dog, we've got a Slimer that I think came from Answer the Call. We've got a sort of purple lady ghost, which looks a bit like the library ghost, but isn't the library ghost. And then we've got some other video clips that are kind of spooky as well. And people love it. People don't know that it isn't the library ghost.
Yeah, it's true. It was the experience,
at Jimsy33 did my rotoscoping. I wanted to give him a credit. At Jimsy33.
We'll look him up.
So Tony, I know that on the subject of props, I know as I've been looking at your Instagram, you've got a pack that you're currently building at the moment, which has got some lovely metal parts all over that thing. I've been drooling as I've been looking at your pictures, and I think you've put it away now for winter while it's too cold to paint. But what led you on to building more packs? Is it just down to the fact that you miss the build process, or is it that you've got with your current pack these things that you weren't happy with and you wanted to start a new pack? What led you down that path?
I kind of have to thank Paul Feig and Answer the Call for my pack building journeys. That might sound a little bit controversial, but 2016 came out. Answer the Call came out. I can't say it's my favourite movie. It's not one I've ever really gone back to. I've watched it once before. But it kind of did reignite something. I kind of did get not back into Ghostbusters. I've always been into Ghostbusters, but I did sort of start looking at the prop building thing. And like a lot of people, I was thinking, this is beyond me. This is too daunting. This is too expensive. This is, I can never do this. But I don't think if that movie hadn't have come out, I don't think I'd have started looking into it. Because, I kind of didn't know it was there even. I didn't know people built packs. I wasn't someone that went to Comic-Cons a lot and that sort of thing. I wasn't someone who was part of the cosplay community. I lived in London for 14 years in a small flat, so I didn't really have many opportunities to do any kind of prop building. So that film, when it came out, I'd been living in York for a couple of years. I have a house with a garage. That's very useful. So that Halloween, my work always does a Halloween dress up, and we make a big deal of Halloween. And so I thought, right, I'm going to do Ghostbusters, and I got myself a Port West flight suit and some badges off eBay. I had a Venkman badge and a very off, non-screen accurate no ghost logo, shall we say? And I put all that on. I looked at a few pictures. I did an old calculator for a belt gizmo. I got some garden hose for a leg hose. The belt wasn't even a pistol belt. I can't remember what it was. It was more like I think it might have been something close to a belt from a dressing gown, even tied tightly. But, we started to put the business. And I've got plans to build a proton pack over the weekend. The Halloween that year, as I believe, fell on a Wednesday, I think it was, or maybe a Tuesday. So I had the weekend to build this pack. And I had the day off Friday. Well, it wasn't great, mate. It was basically, it was a large wooden box, square, with lots of things like a pizza tin and a cake tin and various bits from old video recorders that had scavenged from the tip and some pipes and stuff stuck to it. And then it was like a rucksack. The box went over a rucksack and then you could wear the thing for Halloween, right? The long story short, I'd got the Friday off, but I'd also got a dental appointment. And in this dentist appointment, he said, we're going to have to remove a molar. So that was Friday wiped out as the Novocaine ripped through my system. So I really only had the Saturday and the Sunday to do it. So I rushed it through. It wasn't great. The worst bit about it was the wand. The wand was basically like 2 halves of broom handle and a lump of wood. Then I quickly sprayed black, and it was dreadful. So, but that started it. So I was like, right, I'm going to do the wand better. So that was the Halloween, and at Christmas, I happened to be in like Aldi, and I found these 2 boxes that had marbles inside, but they were roughly the right dimensions for the main gun box. So I took them home, and I found a way to mold them together in a sort of L shape, and I put the angle on the back, and I put some quadrant in the left to, like smooth it off so it started to form the gun box. And if you want to see this thing, go to my Instagram and look at the very first posts, because I was proud as shit as that thing. I thought that was amazing. And then from there, I started to work out ways to get handles onto it and stuff. And I did that, and I found some really cheap hat lights. They're not screen accurate. They were like £3.50, and they came from China, and they took 6 weeks to get here. But it starts to shape up to look like a neutrona wand. Some of the bits I really struggled on were clippered valve and the grips. And I didn't know what I was going to do with this. And this is still me junk building, so I'm still looking around for things. And then I just stumbled across Ben of Kent. And Ben of Kent at the time on eBay was listing full packs, which were the things I didn't want to do. I hadn't got the money to do that. I couldn't go and do that at all. But I dropped him a line and said, look, this is what I'm doing. Any chance you could sell me the grips and the clippered valve? And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. I do those. And he's worked out a price for me. He sent me a sort of a private eBay link for me to buy it on. And these things turned up, and they really unleashed something else in me, because this was like, oh, these things look real. This has gone from my junk build of bits of scrappy wood and table legs and cheap hat lights to it actually looking like a proper neutrona wand. And I still use that neutrona wand today. It's on my GB2 pack, and the GB2 pack ended up being a Ben of Kent shell. I wrote to Ben again, and I said, look, really happy with the one, but now I need the pack. Can you just do me just the shell and just the Alice frame and the motherboard, and I'll go from there. And that's where we did. But funny story, Ben's got his Christmas rush on. He's packing all his boxes, and he packed a full-sized wand into my box. So I got in touch with Ben, and I said, Ben, you put this wand in. I only wanted this. He went, oh, my fault. Keep it, sell it, do what you want with it. So I was like, well, I'm going to use my wand because I've spent ages on it, and it's made from junk, so I'm going to keep it. And this wand sat in the loft for a bit. I had an idea to raffle it at one point for charity, but then something else happened, which was another great person in the community, because I can't say enough about Ben of Kent. It's fantastic. Ninja Tunes, Con from Ninja Tunes, I'd got his kit, and it blew a cathode. I don't know why, it just blew. Okay. I had the shell off. I was just looking at the electronics. I know what I was doing. I was trying to update the songs, and I was updating the songs on the little micro SD card, and this little puff of smoke rose up from the main motherboard. Poof! And it was one of the little diodes going on the thing. So got in touch with Con from Ninja Tunes. He's another fantastic guy. Still have lots of good chats with him most of the weeks. And he was like, I'm going to send you a new main card for it. Don't worry about it. I'll send you that. And also I'm going to send you a whole new kit as well, so you can use that if you want. Because I've just finished the video game kits, which he just started doing. I want to send you this. You can put that in your pack. And I was like, thank you, but I don't want to put it in the pack because I've got a pack. I want this pack to work. I've got this thing. So then in my loft, I've got a full Ninja Tunes TVG kit and a Ben of Kent wand. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these things? So enter another legend of our community, your guest from last episode, Dave from Proton Pops, who was just starting his business out. And I was like, well, look, I've done a Ben of Kent resin shell. I'm thinking about doing something else. what can you offer? What have you got? And he was just getting into the sort of fiberglass shells with the gel coat top with the texture on. And I had one of his first ones. So I'd got that. And I was like, no, Tony, don't be stupid. Just put resin bits on it and don't worry about it. And I got Dave to send me quite a few of his excellent resin parts. But then, I don't know, I was already into it and I was like hitting up GB fans for aluminum parts and real clipards and vintage, trawling eBay for vintage resistors and, you know, as you
firmly down the rabbit hole at this point.
Sticky
firmly
game.
down the rabbit hole. And it is an awful thing. And I don't know if, again, that being close to it, you guys will appreciate it. But so the clipards I've got are brand new, straight from the factory clipards. And then Dave offers up those vintage ones in his Black Friday sale.
I've seen those.
You're looking at what's in your hand and you're going, do I spend another 50 quid? Do I do it? Because I've got these. And then you think, well, I could always sell these. Yeah. And if you're anything like me, you never do. And then you've got stuff in the loft again that you're not selling. So I kind of, it's a tightrope of trying to sort of draw the line. But those three guys, Ben of Ken, Con from Ninja Tunes, Dave from Proton Props, they are genuinely the heart of this community, and all of them give you the time, or give you all the time in the world. If you've got a problem, they're with you to fix it. My Ben of Kent shell, I'd got it to the paint stage, and I left it in the garage off the motherboard, leaning up, very proud. I took a photograph of it and put it on my Instagram. And then me and the wife went on holiday to Cornwall for a couple of weeks. Now, our garage is a sectional concrete garage. And in the summer, when the sun's beating down on it, it gets to about 45 degrees hot in there. So what I got back to was the bottom of the cyclotron, from the weight of the pack above it, had actually just squashed into the middle. So my cyclotron was no longer round. It was flat-bottomed. The plastic had completely melted. And it was all painted, and it was not going to go back on to the motherboard for love nor money. I noticed this about 8:30 at night on a Friday night. The wife was away. I was just going to do some extra bits of tinkering. So I put a message out to Ben of Kent. Mate, this has happened. And Ben, first of all, calmly talked me off a ledge because I was close to tears and thinking I was going to have to start again. and told me to just go at it with the hairdryer, heat it up again and coax it onto the L brackets of the motherboard. And it was... I don't know if you've ever watched old school All Creatures Great and Small, when the vet is there with the farmer birthing the cows at 2 o'clock in the morning. That was me and Ben getting my shell back onto my motherboard. He was with me till the end. I was like, he was messaging me at like 12:30 going, has it worked? Are you still doing it? I was like, still just coaxing it back. And it was just like, not trying to heat it so much that it'd melt, just heat it enough that it went a bit loose and warm again and coaxing it on. And he's just been, I'll never forget that. That he was just there for me, like a sort of birthing partner.
It's really interesting because I've had a very, not to the same degree as you, but I've had a very similar experience. So again, my shell is a Ben of Kent shell, and it's a Ninja Tunes light kit in that as well, which is phenomenal. What happened with mine is the screw where you screw it onto the L bracket on the motherboard near the ion arm, I'd got a bit overzealous in tightening that too tight, and then I came and looked at my pack one morning. I realized that the side of the pack had bowed in from where I tightened it way too tight. And again, speaking to Ben, he's like, just get a hairdryer, heat the side of the pack up, and slowly bring it out. And again, it came right back out. And then basically all I've done now is make sure I do everything just finger tight, and I've stuck some washers behind it just to make sure that it takes some of that gap down on the inside of the shell, so I can't do it again. But again, Ninja Tunes as well, absolutely fantastic. Like when I purchased the Ninja Tunes kit, I think I purchased it on a Saturday, and it came from Greece by Tuesday. Like it was unbelievably fast. Like when it came through the door, I I thought it can't be that already, surely, and it was, and such an easy install. The PDFs that he provided, and the walkthroughs and the videos, all absolutely top-notch stuff. Cannot fault it at all. And even going down to Ben as well. Every time I've purchased something from Ben, whether it's the pack or when I was fixing it, I broke one piece and I purchased and he sent me a replacement. Every time I've bought something from him, he always puts extras in the package of something else. Every single time I've done it. I know when I was building, I bought a part from him and I said, I also need to get the bezel to go around the bar graft on the wand. Oh, no worry, I'll just stick that in for you for free. No problem. So absolutely top-notch service. I can't really fault it at all from my experiences with Ben.
Yeah, and Dave's the same. Dave,
absolutely.
So there's been a couple of instances where with his shell, because it's so different, because it's this gel coated top thing. It's very different to drilling Ben's resin shell. You have to be really careful with how you drill it. You have to go in hard and fast. Basically, if you drill too slow, you'll chip the gel coat. Right. So Dave very kindly, he FaceTimed me basically and just talked me through it and live demonstrated him working on one of his shells. And there was another time where I've done the cyclotron shelf where I've got the red cups and I've put the Ninja Tunes lights directly into the red cups. But if you've got those two things in front of you, you haven't got a clue how those two things go together. You're thinking hot glue gun. You're just not sure.
Yeah.
Dave's got a top tip for that. Of course he has. Gives us a call, gives us a FaceTime, shows me doing it. And I'm like, great, that's perfect. That's all I need to know. But the technique, which was to do with using a step bit, and the step bit gets hot so it kind of melts the plastic and you can just about do it. I would not know how to do that. So these guys have done all that stuff. They've tried and tested it. They are the experts. And like I say, but they don't keep it to themselves. They want you to have a good experience as the customer. And I think those three, particularly in the UK, I know the con's Greece, but it's got a lot of custom in the UK. They are the backbone of the prop building community, if you ask me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. It's great that they provide not just really good equipment, but like you say, they're not gatekeepers of knowledge. They're quite happy to share that with the community and encourage people's builds. It's very, very good.
Yes, don't forget these people are busy as well. They're building things left, right, and centre, and they've still got the time to come and talk to you as well, which just shows sort of the level of service really, and what they want to give back to the community. They could quite easily just sell you something and then they go, right, that's enough. I don't need to talk to you again. I've taken your money, but they don't do that. They make sure that you're 100% happy with what you've bought and that you can do with it what you want to.
At the end of the day, they are small businessmen, and because they are a small business, they care about their customers. And I know all of them come in for some stick when it comes to like supply levels and getting things out the door quick and complaining about them and whatnot. Just stop complaining. This is one man in a shed. Yeah. I mean, Con probably won't mind me telling you, he's got a full-time job. He does his stuff as like a hobby build. He does. So you can't make demands and say, well, where is it? These are people who are doing you a favour and taking your money, but they're doing you a favour. So,
yeah. And that's one of the things that I wanted to, make clear when we spoke to Dave last week, that they're buying a lot of these components, in bulk quantities where they can find it. And we all know from building packs, that's no easy task. So especially with the global shortage on, certain components and lead times and things like that, I think sometimes these guys that provide equipment unfairly come in for some criticism when people don't fully understand what is required in order to, provide this sort of kit and these components to the wider community. And, ultimately, I think I think people just need to have maybe a little bit more patience. We're not talking about people getting food out the door to feed people. It's a toy at the end of the day that goes on your back. It's not gonna, it's not going to be a great loss if you have to wait an extra 2 or 3 weeks. I can understand. Maybe people sometimes are disappointed if they don't get things built in time for a certain con and things like that. But there's always another con. There's always something else you can go to.
Yeah,
I think these guys do a great job.
He had a bag of the Linrose hat lights for traps, the little red light that goes on the back of the traps.
Yeah.
He was selling them for, this is going back a while, he was selling them for like 10 quid a pop or something. And he got a lot of stick for that. People were saying like 10 quid's a bit steep. And he was like, well, hang on. It took me something like 30 man hours to find someone who'd got a bag of Linrose hat lights. It then cost me a fortune to get them shipped over here because I had to pay customs and excise. And then, so I've done all the legwork. So you're kind of paying labour as well. And I totally buy that. I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. So on the subject of community, then, Tony, I suppose another question for you is how have you found Instagram over the course of the past 12 months and I suppose the explosion of followers that you've had? Because I think that, within the Ghostbusters community now, you've got to be probably one of the most followed people within the Ghostbusters community.
That's possibly true, but at the same time, really quite humbling. Again, I think I like to give things context. You're probably learning this by now, so I'll give you a little bit of history on that. So my Instagram account, I already had one, Tony Beresford, holiday photos. Never took pictures of food. I don't get that, why people do that. But, holiday photos, plants and flora and fauna, that sort of thing. And off you go. And then I started this Neutrona one build, and I thought, well, I want to document it. And I like Instagram. I like what it does. I'll start using Instagram to document that. So early on, if you scroll to the bottom of my feed, you'll just see step-by-step build stuff of me doing my Instagram. And when I started up, I wanted like proton pack build. Guess what? That name had gone. I was like, proton pack building. That had gone. And I was kind of aware of Chris Stewart proton charging in Canada, and he used to do cross rip with Troy Benjamin at Ghostbusters HQ. And I was just putting in names, and it came up like proton building. I was like, that's it, I'll have it. And I was like, oh, that's Chris Stewart proton charging. People will make mistakes. And I thought, no, it's just silly. It's don't be silly. It's just you just doing a small town pack build in your garage. No one's going to care. And it kind of soon ramped up. I don't know why. It's just people really got behind it and really looked at I think because like what I was doing was junk building, but it still looked the part. And I think people quite got into that. And I started to get a lot of people asking me questions. Well, how did you do that bit? And how did you do this bit? And actually, when I got the Benefit shell and I posted that, some people who were following me got in touch with me and said they were disappointed that I was using a shell and I wasn't building it out of like bits of old pallets and stuff like that, because that's what they expected from me.
Right, sure.
Well, that's a bit weird. So that's what I was doing it for. Over time, it's become general Ghostbusters posts. I get a lot out of Instagram. It's that sort of like that high you get when people like your stuff. Sure, that's there, but for me, it's community. Some of my closest friends, I'm not getting choked up. My voice is getting a bit dry from talking. Some of my closest friends today are on Instagram, and they live in America. Or, they live in Scotland. Gar Jones, Spooky Spengler, so people like that. You can find them on Instagram. I won't give their real names away. But these people, we chat all the time. And that for me is it's been a lifeline. My family have been through a lot in the recent years. And the escapism that Ghostbusters and Instagram offered me at that time pretty much kept me going. So I've kept it going.
That's awesome.
I look to post as often as I can. I look to post new stuff. I look to try and give something original to content because it makes me happy. So if I'm reaching out to even 3 or 4 people and making them happy, and then we're talking about it, then that to me is awesome, and that's what it's always been. And recently, and I've talked to Mark about this, it has gone a little bit crazy. And the story of that was, so I just about reached 5,000 followers, and that was organically grown, long haul, probably getting about 500 followers every 6 to 7 months. And just happy tootling along, felt like it was a small community, but it was growing. And then back in October, the Northeast Ghostbusters, we attended a Halloween Halloween con called Nerd Fest. I think they'd called it Fright Fest up in Newcastle, and they got an Ecto coming, and it was Mike from Ghostbusters Ecto 1 UK who was coming.
Yeah.
So we've got all the gear that we just
car.
mentioned. We've got the containment unit, we've got the shelves, we've got the table, we've got all the packs, we've got everything we need. But we couldn't set up because Mike wasn't there with the car. So we were waiting for the car, and we got a call to say that he was on his way. So we went out in the street. I kind of saw Mike coming down the street in the Ecto. So I filmed it just for future posting. And then we hit a problem. Mike can't get the car in the venue because they've got these doors, these glass doors that act as a bit of a partition that have got this low height ceiling. So we're out in the street, or Mike is out in the street, taking all the tall stuff off the car. He's taking the blue pipes off the side. He's taking the ladder off the side so he can get through these doors. So we still can't set up. So in that time, though, I decided, well, I'm going to post that film of the car coming down the thing. I just posted it it was Sunday morning, so I think I put easy Sunday morning. Ecto pulls up. Mike was blaring the siren, so I kept the siren song on it, and I dubbed it with bus boys cleaning up the town. Yeah, cars gets in, car gets parked, phone goes back in pocket. Right, we've got half an hour. We've got to get the containment unit up. We've got to get the shelves up. We've got to get the desk set up. We've got to get everything gone. And we'd gone a bit more on that one because I've got Janine Melnet's telephone. We'd wanted to set up an Xbox playing the 2013 video game. Paul had set up a slime jar that bubbles, so that was a great thing. But we got all this to do in half an hour.
Nice.
So the doors open. People start coming in. Some of us aren't even in uniform yet, so we've got all that to do, and we've got to get dressed, and then it's full on, right? You've done cons, people want your attention, they want to take photographs, they want to ask you things. The car's there, that is a big attraction. They want photographs with the car, they want you to take photographs with the car, they want you to be in the photographs with photographs of them in the car. Can you take a picture of me and my kids? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's like a full-on day. So we didn't stop for 2 o'clock. And 2 o'clock, phone comes out of the pocket. The first thing I noticed was the battery's nearly dead. I was like, what? What's going on there? Battery normally lasts me all day. And it's basically because all the notifications have just been pinging away on my phone. And this was just this post had gone crazy. I think by lunchtime it got 1,000 likes, which was just, I was like, okay, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. Great day. We loved the day. A couple of days later, it was up to about 2,000 likes. And obviously on that day, I'd done quite a bit of making footage and films of the car. So I thought, well, I'll post another one. And this time, I think it was a sweeping shot of the car that goes round to the side and finishes on the logo. And I put Bobby Brown cleaning up the town on it. Again, the phone starts going crazy. This is just mental. And it kind of never stopped. I think the first one with the car coming down the street is now at 400. I wrote it down here so I don't remember. 407,000 views with 20,000 likes. The Bobby Brown one, close to 500,000 views with over 32,000 likes. And
that's insane.
It is insane. And what happened was the follow count starts going up. And Mark and I have talked about this in the past as well. But there was 1 week where I think I went from 5,000 to 7,500 followers in 5 days, which which is kind of flattering, but at the same time, kind of feels like you've lost the connection. Those first 5,000 that I grew organically, I probably saw them all follow me, saw the little likes, maybe had a conversation, maybe liked something of theirs, maybe kind of knew a little bit about those lives. But that next 7,500, and I'm now I'm close to 15,500. The connection's gone, and I'm not complaining. Honestly, I'm not. I really hope that this means Sony will send me some free stuff next time there's a new movie out. So
Milk it.
Listen, I'll post it for you. Just send that stuff. I'll post it. But at the same time, it's like it's kind of become a bit impersonal at the same time. So, but I'm not complaining, and it still gives me goosebumps. And so recently it has slowed down. It was at one point it was like 200. You wake up to 200 new followers. These days it's more like 10 or 20 followers, which is kind of like what it used to be. I'm not going to lie and say it's not a little bit disappointing, but at the same time I'm kind of happy because it felt like a train that was out of control, and now it feels like it's pulling into the station.
So I remember being on Instagram and seeing your post, Tony, and you posted like, thanks to my 7,500 followers. A couple of days later, you were like on 10, and it seemed like every day or so you're posting another one, which is just I had to keep checking myself just to make sure you weren't making it up. I was like, this can't be right. How is he going up that quickly? It was just amazing.
I was on a real dilemma. I didn't know whether it would come across as big-headed, but my Instagram account is about documenting my Ghostbusters journey from that proton pack build, from that there. So this is part of that journey, and for me it was overwhelming, and I wanted to post that it was overwhelming. So if I look back in 3 years' time, I can find those posts and read what I've put, and it's like a diary almost in it. And it was like massively overwhelming. It was unreal. I was at one point, I think I quoted Egon and said I was terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought, which I was, because I wake up each morning and my phone had been melting.
Yeah. And I think as well, when you think about when you say that it feels maybe a touch more impersonal now with the connections, I think that ultimately at the end of the day, if you continue to put out the same type of content now as you did when you first started, I don't think that it will feel, maybe any less personal for those people that are following you.
No, absolutely right. And those connections, those original connections are still there. And if I put out, so I put out a post the other day. I think my average like count is about 200. This one achieved about 79 or 80 likes. That didn't bother me because I could see the people that had liked it, and they were all people I knew. They were people who I'd got connections with. So that core is still there. And I think I would have to hit some Instagram gold, like an Ecto screeching up on a Sunday morning to get those numbers again, to get those likes again.
And actually, that's a really good thing actually to touch on, because when I started my Worcester Ghostbusters page a couple of years ago now, it was during COVID, and a bit like you, I'd started sort of doing stuff, and I thought I'd start documenting stuff. But one of the first people to like and comment on something was you, Tony. And it wasn't just a case of just liking something, but it was a very personal thing, a very personal connection that you made, and straight away it felt like we'd known each other, longer than just a post. There was that one thing there. I thought, there's people in this community that actually, they like the stuff that you put out, and they want to get in touch with, and they want to be part of, they want you to be part of this community. And you were definitely that one person that just stuck straight in there, went, let's pull you into this, and we'll make you part of it. And it was fantastic to feel that. So I've got to thank you for that, actually, because it was really good.
Oh, mate, no, and I was actually, Dan mentioned EctoCon earlier. I think when I saw you at EctoCon, it was like meeting an old friend. It was like meeting someone who I'd known for ages, or I just hadn't seen for a while. And I think those events they're really something. And I've got to thank you for having the idea for this Crossing the Streams thing as well, which I'm sure you'll tell the listeners about. But a few of us all met up at Birmingham recently for that. Was it MegaCon? Was it MegaCon? MCM, wasn't it?
No,
MCM,
MCM, yeah.
Yeah. MCM, and we there was more people there than I thought were going to be there, all in Ghostbusters gear, and it was just great. And you make some new friends. And I think going back to that point about the UK being a relatively small country, I think Ectocon, while I enjoyed myself there, I think it suffered from being too far north for a lot of people. So I think if you can find a central location where people from north, south, east, and west can get to it, I think we've got opportunities to really pull the community together.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Definitely.
So Tony, what's the plan for the next 12 months? Have you got any goals that you're specifically working towards for either yourself or as a franchise?
Personally, and franchise-wise, for me, it's the charity, right? It's absolutely the charity. There's a guy from the LA Ghostbusters, Matt Zunick, who's Matt does voices on Instagram, and he recently appeared on another podcast, and he said, if you take away the charity side of it, I'll probably just hang up the proton pack. And I 100% agree with that. If it's not for the charity angle, I kind of wouldn't do it. And that's what attracts, as well as the fact that I already knew Paul and I just loved his containment unit build. That's what kind of pulled me towards the Northeast Ghostbusters, even though the Newcastle and it's a bit further away from me, is that they do so much work for charity, and they've really sort of gone great guns to do as much as they can each year. And we've raised £2,000 this year for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which was a charity chosen by John, a member of the team. It's a form of muscular dystrophy that I think it only mainly affects young boys, and it can often mean that their life expectancy isn't much past the age of 16. So we thought, well, that's a perfect charity for us, because we can all remember being young kids and probably when we first got into things like Ghostbusters. So it seemed a perfect charity, and we pick a different charity each year, but that was the year. And then we also do our annual toy drive fund, which is for Cash for Kids Northeast, which help buy toys and presents, not just toys, for kids right up to teenagers who are living in poverty in our area, who are have got nothing, and possibly will wake up Christmas morning to nothing. So Cash for Kids do a lot for those communities, but their mission Christmas, which is what we get involved in, is to make sure that all of those kids can wake up to something on Christmas morning. And we raised we raised £1,260 this time. With a bit of extra spending.
Congratulations on that. And that's great work, that is.
Thanks. And then tomorrow, I'll be going straight to bed after we've recorded this, because tomorrow I've got to get up early because I'm driving up to Newcastle, because we're doing a Christmas party for a children's heart unit. They granted the space by Crown Plaza Hotel in Newcastle, and they have a big Christmas party. All these kids, these really sick kids, get together. They get to have a dinner with the friends and the families, and there's a Santa, and everyone gets a present there. But there's also costumed heroes, so there'll be stormtroopers, Ghostbusters, of course, and then there'll be things like Marvel characters and Disney princesses. And then that finishes at 3, and then at 3 o'clock we'll jump in cars and we'll drive to Metro Centre, and we'll spend that 1,260 on toys and presents. So it's going to be like supermarket sweep, dressed in flight suits.
Brilliant.
Hey!
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I have to admit that the charity side of things is something that I think it's really unique to the Ghostbusters franchise world, and every franchise that you speak to, not every, but the vast majority, I think, are involved in charity in one form or another. And I've said it before, I'd love to know globally how much money has been raised through the relevant different Ghostbusters franchises, because I bet it's a phenomenal amount of money. to be honest. And even not necessarily raising money, but even just getting involved in in charity events is fantastic. When myself and the East Midlands guys did the Make-A-Wish stuff earlier on this year, what an absolutely phenomenal experience! Not only for the young lad George, who we went and met, but for us involved, it's just an overwhelming experience. And I think it's also, unfortunately, it's I wouldn't say it's a double-edged sword, but when you go and you see children who are having a really hard time with things, it can be really heartbreaking, because I think it's one thing to see an adult going through things, but to see kids going through really hard times, it can be really soul destroying. And to turn up and to see them smile and be happy and just forget that for a moment while you're there in the Ghostbusters uniform, that's something that it stays with you, I think.
Yeah, and that thing you guys did with George and the Make-A-Wish, that was honestly nothing but applause from us and the rest of the community. That was phenomenal to get involved in that. And it kind of reminded me of that I'm not sure we talk about it as often as we should. Ghost Heads, the film about fans.
Ghost Heads,
Ghost Heads.
Yeah.
So there's a bit in that where Jeff Lewis from the Arizona Ghostbusters gets a bit choked up because
I know exactly the part you're talking about. Yeah,
the kids come up to him and said, when he grows up, he wants to be a Ghostbuster, and that kid isn't talking about being Bill Murray. That kid's talking about being someone like Jeff, who's basically a good guy doing good in the world, and that's it for me. I don't consider myself a cosplayer. I'm a Ghostbuster. It doesn't say Bankman on my name badge. It says Beresford, because that's me. My pack isn't Bankman's pack. It's Tony Beresford's pack. I think that for me is what makes it. We can all be a Ghostbuster. That, coming full circle back to that Paul Feig thing, Jason Reitman said it. Paul Feig said women can be Ghostbusters. The community might not have liked it, but Paul Feig said it. So Jason Reitman goes, well, okay, well, a 12-year-old girl can be a Ghostbuster. Anyone can be a Ghostbuster. You don't have to have a six-pack. You can wear glasses. You can do what you want. You can be
or have
pushing
a beard.
50. You can be pushing 50 with a slightly greying beard, like myself. And you can still be a Ghostbuster. You don't have to be a wisecracking New Yorker. And I think for me, it's a fantastic community, and it's my work colleagues ask me what it's about, and the best way I can describe it is it's a bit like the Rotary Club, but with proton packs. Because we are.
It's a cyclotron club.
We're a big national group. We put a lot back into the community. We put as much as we can back into the community, and I agree with Matt from the LA Ghostbusters. If you take the charity away, I probably wouldn't be bothered.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well said.
March 23rd, HasLab packs, 15,000 new proton packs are going to enter the world. But yeah, there's going to be a heck of a lot of Ghostbusters with a good-looking pack coming out. We had a kid come up to us at an event we did in Leeds. He got the HasLab wand, but he got the little blue Hasbro proton pack. And he was asking me about mine, and he was saying, is it heavy? And I said, oh, it's really heavy. And I used the line, proton pack is not a toy. And he said, oh, I'm getting one. I said, oh, what are you getting? And I imagined he was going like Ben of Kent or Proton Props, or, he was getting something big. But no, he'd seen the HasLabs, he'd backed the HasLabs, and he'd worked out with his mum that if he could save £25 a month between the backing and March 2023, he'd just about have enough money to pay for it. And he was just so excited.
Oh, amazing.
For it. And that's a junior buster in the making, who's come March next year is going to have a brand new proton pack.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So finally, Tony, for the benefit of the listeners, if they want to find you, see what you're all about, tell them where you want to go, and hopefully we can get that user count, that follow count up, maybe a few extra followers.
Yeah, sure. So on Facebook, I'm just plain old Tony Beresford, but over on Instagram, I'm at Proton Building. yeah, come hit me up and we'll get chatting Ghostbusters. Honestly, send me a message, I'll answer it.
And you do.
Awesome.
It's great.
And I think, genuinely, Tony, I think if anyone deserves the success through Instagram and deserves the followers, I think it's yourself. You put a lot into the community and you get very heavily involved. So more props to you.
Thanks, guys. And I really enjoyed this. And we've got the technology now, and most of us have got computers at home, so we should do this more often.
We should.
Absolutely.
We should big group gatherings, get together.
Yeah.
Open up a 4-pack, kick back, and hit the playback.
Thanks, Tony.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you soon.
What the hell are you doing?
Okay, so I'd like to thank our guest today, Tony, for coming on, the one and only Bearded Buster, or Proton Building. Please check him out on all of his socials. I know he's got a huge following already, but I'm sure he certainly wouldn't say no to a few more followers.
Definitely not.
Mark, from yourself, any final thoughts?
Well, I don't know if you've seen any videos coming out of Tested the last couple of weeks. Interestingly, they brought out a film, and keeping sort of within the theme of us looking at sort of prop and cosplay related things. Sean Charlesworth, who's on there quite a lot with various things, he tends to do a lot of Ghostbusters stuff because he's a massive Ghostbusters fan. So he, a few years ago, 2016 actually, he brought out a video where he had made a 3D ghost trap. And there's some, we'll put some links in our socials about this just so you can have a look if you haven't already. But it's an idealized ghost trap, and the pedal works, the trap doors open, the lights blink, and there's smoke, and there's lights inside, there's sound. It's a fantastic model, and the instructions are out there that he's supplied completely free. You can get the STL files, you can download and print them off. My ghost trap and my belt is Sean Charlesworth, Charlesworth Dynamics ghost trap. It's fantastic as a kit if you want to put something together fairly quickly. But the video that came out the last week or so is his version of the RTV trap, sort of slightly based on his ghost trap that he's done. He's bought the kit version of the screen accurate RC car that they built it out of, and he's done his own RTV trap, sort of in tying in with the Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed game, and it looks amazing. It's definitely worth a watch. It's about 25 minutes long. Have a watch. It's just a step-by-step of how he's made it. Again, all the instructions he's made available, any STL files that he's done for modifications on it, he's made available. So you can actually go and build your own RTV now.
Oh man, I love that stuff.
It's people like that just make this cosplaying business so much easier. You can go and find the stuff, go and make it yourself. It's easy to put together, and it works. So yeah, I recommend anyone who wants to do that to go and have a look at his stuff first. And also, as an extra little bit of a shout out, if you need any sort of ghost trap parts, or if you want to buy the ghost trap kit, you can actually get it from Sean Charlesworth himself on his Etsy shop. I bought some extra stuff from him myself for my trap, and it works. It fits all together. He's done metal side plates. He's got knobs and resistors, light kit I think he's got on there as well. And the trap pedal kits, the hose connectors, everything you want he's got on there. Yeah, it's really great.
That brings us to the end of the episode today. If anyone would like to follow along to us, then please check our socials. You can find us at SMAF Podcast, or SMAF Podcast on Instagram, or Spores, Mold and Fungus on Facebook. Of course, as well, you've also got Cross the Streams, which we spoke about at the beginning of the episode. Mark, if you'd just like to give us a recap on those socials.
Yeah, it's facebook.com/groups/Cross the Streams UK, or on Instagram, it's Cross the Streams UK.
So that brings us to the end of episode 2. We'll be back with episode 3 real soon. But in the meantime, stay fit, keep sharp, and make good decisions. Until next time.
Good night, everyone.